Clemson and Notre Dame have signed a 12-year annual contract. How does that help Florida State or hurt it with conference realignment? And should Florida State learn something from that deal?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Conference realignment being impacted by Clemson and Notre Dame signing a 12-year deal. There's a little bit of discussion about that, but perhaps more realistically, perhaps Florida State should look at why Clemson may have done this deal, because there's a really unique nuance. We'll get to that in a minute. But first off, I just want to clear something. I've seen a few suggestions, and I don't think there's a lot of validity to it, that Clemson signing with Notre Dame is some kind of deal where they're going to leave the ACC or they've got something quick to do, a way out, whatever. Everybody likes to speculate about conference realignment. Heck, I do too. But that's not really the deal here. Clemson's had some really good games against the Irish. Clemson wants to play quality competition to increase their opportunity to make the college football playoff. Those are really good things. I'm going to get into the secondary part of what Clemson's doing in about 5 minutes. But overall, it's about getting to the playoff because you got to play quality teams to get there. And B, they've had some pretty good games, and it's just great football. Dabo Swinney, you say whatever you want about him, he's not afraid of competition. They always play an out-of-conference game early in the year, Georgia or somebody. This year it's LSU. Notre Dame's probably going to be that team moving forward. And as a side note, I've heard from multiple people that Notre Dame's annual rivalry with the University of Southern California, which dates back to, I believe, 1925, is going to come to an end. We'll see if that's the truth, but the Clemson series might give me a little hint that there's some validity to that as well, but that's another story for another day. Again, I do not believe Clemson signing a 12-year annual deal with the Fighting Irish has anything to do with them immediately leaving the ACC. Yes, I put that word in there and emphasized it for a reason. Again, I'll get to that in a few minutes. But we shouldn't just automatically go and assume anything based on one deal. It doesn't have to be Clemson, Notre Dame. I'm just saying roundabout. It happens all the time that teams sign contracts. Now, not as many 12-year deals. I get that. But it serves the purposes that I mentioned. Competition's great. It draws your fans in. The TV contracts, which I will talk immediately about after this next couple of sentences, and it's going to help you get into the playoff. But let's talk about that brand part. I'm going to have some quotes that I'm going to use here in a minute that will come from Florida State's AD as well as Miami's AD, and they're direct about it. And you can read between the lines on that. So let's look at it this way. The new deal that the ACC signed, which Clemson and Florida State and everybody agreed to, more eyeballs come your way, more money comes your way. Which team draws an insane amount of eyeballs no matter how they're playing, good, bad, or indifferent? That's Notre Dame. It is no coincidence that Clemson wants Notre Dame on their slate after that happened. None. It is brilliant. Notre Dame's going to sell out pretty much any stadium it goes to. It's pretty much the world's Catholic university, especially as it relates to football. There's no doubt it's Notre Dame. No offense to Boston College. It's easy money. Clemson wants the TV money. Do you blame them? Like Florida State, they've been hosed by the ACC. They're looking to make up revenue. This is a political ploy to help with the playoff, absolutely. But it's also a financial filling of the coffers, too. Florida State should follow suit. Doesn't have to be just Notre Dame. There's a lot of brands you can help. And they've got, ironically, Notre Dame coming to Doak Campbell Stadium in 2026. How many years they've got Florida State and Notre Dame going back and forth, I don't know the numbers, but they're one of the teams that are going to play the Fighting Irish a little bit more. Miami is the other. So to that point, there's an article, UCLA Bruins on SI. I found this talking about conference realignment, Florida State, Miami, etc. And then, of course, the Clemson-Notre Dame deal. And here is a little bit of what's going on in regards to Michael Alford, the AD at Florida State. Today in college football, more than ever, it's important for strong brands to play strong brands, said Michael Alford. That helps our brand as well as all of us within the conference. We've been consistent in that belief for a while now, as you can see in our non-conference scheduling philosophy. It's important for our conference and our media partners. Notice how he got the media partners thing in there? Let me cut this for you. That deal that the ACC made, that caveat, make no mistake, they don't want Notre Dame playing. No offense to these schools, but this is just reality. It's okay if Notre Dame plays Wake Forest a little bit, but most of the time they want them to play at least two of the following three ACC schools, Miami, Florida State, Clemson, period. Because the networks are going to pay them more money if Notre Dame does. It's just the way it is. They want brands playing brands, not teams in the ACC. Just everybody's equal. That's garbage. And that's what Florida State and Clemson argued for with the whole lawsuit thing, and that's why it came to the table, and here we are. This is about money as much, if not more, honestly, than about like Dabo and Marcus Freeman trying to get an extra game on the schedule that looks competitive, and of course you hope you win, to show the playoff committee. It's guaranteed revenue based on the advertisers. That's it. Now, to Florida State's point, they absolutely should look at this as an opportunity. Again, I said it a moment ago. They got Florida State and Notre Dame for 26 via the ACC deal. I don't know how far that goes, but the deal with Clemson that's so smart on their part, again, if they leave the ACC, the deal with Notre Dame stays. Now, Notre Dame would then have to play 5 ACC teams because Clemson is not a part of it anymore. So they'd play Clemson and 5 others. I would assume if Clemson leaves, whenever it is, it'll be the SEC. That's just my guess as a side point. But if Clemson goes independent for any stretch of time, they would have another marquee team. Do not be shocked if Florida State might do that for a year or two if they left after 26, 27, whatever year it is. Long term, they'll end up in the Big Ten or SEC, but it would not shock me if they did that. There's always a possibility. So should Florida State set themselves up in a similar fashion? Sure they should. Maybe it's Michigan. Maybe it's another school. I don't know who, but it needs to be an SEC or Big Ten school, preferably, and or Notre Dame, that they set a long-term deal with that is not affiliated with the ACC. In other words, it doesn't impact anything. They already play Florida. I get that, but something in addition to the Gators, because that's an in-state rivalry forever. They need to find somebody else like that. And you know what? I give Alford a lot of credit for saying that they want to play competition and their partners. He laid it out there for us. They're pushing this. If you guys are going to get this money, we're all but going to pick the games for you. That's what this is. Okay. I'm cool with it because I want to see great football, and I highly doubt any fans out there are going to be mad about it either. But to that point, when we come back, I want to ask you about who would you like to see Florida State play? I have my own thoughts. Traveling, there's some other things with it. It's not just what's fun, it's what's financially feasible. I don't want you to pick one or the other, both. So you bring your thinking hats when we come back from break here on Locked On Seminoles. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and it makes it affordable. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Who are some of the teams that you would like to see the Florida State Seminoles not just play a 1 or 2 game kind of deal, but maybe 4, maybe 6, maybe even 8 games? I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of 12-year deals. The Clemson-Notre Dame was pretty unique. And as a reference point, I've heard from multiple people that the Notre Dame Southern Cal series may not make it any longer. It's kind of sad. I think that started in 1925, and the only year or 2 that it didn't happen was World War II. Somebody might correct me on that, but I've heard that's going to go away, and that might be one of the reasons the Irish also want to pick up Clemson just to make their schedule better. But that's a side point. So who would you like to see Florida State add outside of their normal in the ACC? They've got Clemson. You got a pretty good rivalry, and, of course, Miami. Then you got Florida. They got 3 really good rivalry games. But outside of those, would you like to see something new? And if yes, why? What brings your attention to them from a fan perspective? And then again, as I stated before break, bring your thinking hat. How does this help Florida State financially? Think up not who you like, not who you hate, not who you think deserves it, just bottom line. Which teams bring in the dollars via TV? We know who they are. These are obvious names. Texas, Bama, Georgia, Clemson, who Florida State plays, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan. Nebraska is an interesting one. They may not be great anymore, but that place has always got a lot of people. They get a lot of eyeballs. USC, Oregon. There's so many different brands you could throw in. Texas A&M, another one they sell out every game. Who would it be and why? This is one of my favorite topics and why I think college football is the bomb. There are so many things culturally, and you're going across the country, different places to visit, different restaurants, hotels. Traveling for away games is an incredibly fun thing. It's one of the reasons I like being in media. To be honest, I get to experience things that I otherwise would have even known existed. So if nothing else, look at it from that perspective. I can give you one that I want to see. One of my bucket list stadiums and places to go, it's top 5. It's one you're probably not going to think about. You're recently added to the Big 12, BYU. If you want to see an unbelievably picturesque stadium, go Google Brigham Young Football Stadium. And you'll go through a handful of photos. When they got a sunset coming, it's insane how cool it is. I'd love to go there. Oregon kind of speaks for itself. That's a place that's on my bucket list. Florida State, LSU, I think, the I-10 corridor. Yeah, that area, a lot of the fans root for Florida State. A lot of them root for LSU. That would be a natural one. And all of these would be filling the coffers too. For those who don't know, BYU is insanely rich school. A lot of eyeballs. Anything they do sports-wise would help. So Florida State would benefit from that as well. But I've named 3. Oregon, BYU, LSU. I think those are all doable. LSU is one of the best schools in the country about going outside their own area. They'll play wherever. They play USC. They played UCLA. They played Notre Dame. They played all kinds of schools in the last 25 years in series. I think that'd be a pretty easy one. And the most likely, because that's a big box, everybody would watch, and it would definitely fill the coffers. Of course, they just played the little series that were at neutral sites, but I'm talking about home and home. Doak Campbell and Death Valley. That would be dope. Who else would you like to see and why? If I'm trying to think outside the box of some others, and maybe this is just me thinking because I believe Florida State ends up in the Big Ten, Michigan State would be another one that might be a little under the radar. I've been to a couple games there. Their fan base gets into it. Pretty cool stadium. And I think it would be wild to play Michigan State like November 15th. Now, I've said this before, and it's still true. Florida kids don't do well in the snow, but if you're going to go to the Big Ten, you got to get used to that. They're going to put you in some of those games. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan State, Michigan, Penn State, they're going to go out of their way to schedule a Southern school in November, guarantee it, because the conference members are going to be mad if they don't. It's one against a whole bunch. But anyway, I think Michigan State would be cool. Who do you got and why? And again, remember, does it help fill the coffers? TV liking it, boosters liking it, a cool place for the Florida State fan base to travel to? There are a lot of different options. And it's why college football is just so much fun. As a last parting idea, just going to kind of throw this out there. What about Colorado? Wouldn't that be ironic if Dion was still there in like 5 years and they could play the game? I don't care if they just go to one game and they went to Boulder. Not likely per se, but I think it would be interesting. I think it would be really interesting. So we'll see if that can happen. But I'm hoping that Florida State's scheduling moving forward, based on what Mr. Alford said, comes to fruition. And I hope it's not only just the coffers. I hope they're really intriguing and they're great games. Good news is Florida State does have a game coming up with Notre Dame next year. They've got Alabama this year. They have been very creative. By the way, I know I've talked about this recently, but go look at Florida State's 2026 schedule. It is absolutely awesome for any season ticket holder or anybody just trying to get a ticket. They've got Notre Dame, they've got Florida, and they've got Clemson, all in the same year at home. That's about as good as it's going to get. There are a couple other decent games too, but those are three marquee. I think that's great for college football and obviously gives Florida State a chance to get its footing again. By the way, you got to win at least one of those games. Can't go 0 from there. I know this is way, 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 way out there. Florida State cannot go 0 for against Clemson, Notre Dame, and Miami in 26. That cannot happen. Just, again, want to make that clear. But at the same point, you've got to find a way to get some one of these games scheduled so it's going to work your way. Making the money, making it more fun, etc. But it is what it is. I don't know what's going to happen down the road because it's so hard with scheduling. Everybody's trying to find the best angle for them. I just hope it works for Florida State. But anyway. Oh, by the way, that reminds me, Florida State, they play Miami at home this year. There's somebody else. I'm missing somebody. Clemson, Notre Dame. Oh, in Florida, not Miami. It's Florida. Clemson and Notre Dame, they play at home. But still, 3 elite games. My apologies. So Miami will be on the road in 26. They got Miami at home this year. My apologies. What can they do to fix this? I don't know, but the scheduling I think is pretty good now, but that doesn't mean it can't get better. So hopefully for me, Florida State plays one of those teams, Oregon, maybe BYU or LSU coming up soon. Those would be all great. And I'm curious to hear what other replies y'all have. Please comment down below. I'd love to hear it. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate it. Please like and subscribe, share this podcast, and comment down below. I want to hear what you have to say. We will see you again soon here on Locked On Seminoles.